The Audain Art Museum features over 200 years of artistic production in British Columbia. Welcome to Behind the Screen. I'm Dr. Curtis Collins, Director and Chief Curator here at the Audain Art Museum, and today, along with my co-host, Julie Sakamoto, we're going to look at a selection from the permanent collection.
Thank you for having me again, Curtis. And I have a feeling we're going to look at some masks today.
Yes, we are.
Excellent. I can't wait to see them.
Me too. So we're here in Cressy Hall, and the first piece we'd like to talk about is a work that was commissioned from Paul Wong. And the work behind us is called No Thing Is Forever.
What does the Chinese character reference?
That's the Chinese character for eternity, and you can see that Wong places it off against the alphabet, but rendered in cursive. So in other words, nobody practices cursive anymore, so that's a reference to the fact that things expire.
Right.
But the affinity Chinese character is sort of contrary to that. So there's a nice contrast at a conceptual level with this piece.
And is there a significance to the rainbow color that goes across?
Paul has always used neon as a central material, so you know it's nice and appealing. It's got
Colorful
primary
flow.
and secondary colors, but it's a wonderful piece that was created just for this spot in the lobby. So it's a great entry into the art of British Columbia.
That's awesome.
The Crystal Gallery features 3 large vitrines that have some of the oldest objects in the museum's entire collection. And here we have some masks.
I think this room is my favorite room because of these masks. They're very cool.
And this is in fact a work from circa 1820. And what do you think that is, Julie?
I think it's an owl.
And what led you to believe that?
The eyes are pretty big.
Yes.
And I would say his beak is not big enough for an eagle.
Correct. And so this mask would have been used by a shaman. And it's of Tlingit origin, and really the fine eyebrows and the fine beak are a sure sign that it is Tlingit. And there's something very special about this mask.
What is it?
Can you tell? Look at it.
Well, there's rope hanging down,
Correct.
so I have a feeling that the eyes move, which
That's
would
right.
be very cool.
Yeah, the eye flaps come up and down, and within the context of Tlingit narratives, the owl often was a bringer of bad news or warning.
Oh, okay. So would this have been used in a dance, or in what sort of ritual would this have been used
This
for?
would be more connected to an individual, so a shaman, and so within the context of healing and that type of ceremony.
And what is the actual mask made of?
It's actual human hair around the periphery, and then obviously this is sinew, so leather, and then the actual carving is out of wood.
And would the hair have been of a specific member of the tribe or community?
I can't say for sure, but hair is generally highly prized, and
Right.
so it's likely that there was some connection between the individual's hair and this mask.
To see that in action with its eyes moving around would have been a very epic sight to see.
Absolutely, and you have to imagine these things in motion, in like fireside light, so it would have a very dramatic effect.
And would the masks have been a prized possession of the tribe? How would they have
Yes.
cared for them?
Well, they would have handed it down from generation to generation, so, you know, father to son and that sort of thing, and kept in bent boxes, which we also have in our collection.
Cool. Well, let's go see the next thing.
Sure. Another one of the more valuable masks in this collection is this Simpson work, which dates to circa 1880.
Okay.
And can you determine what it is?
I think it's a bear.
And what do you base that on?
Oh, it's big, sharp teeth.
That's a good sign.
Why is this one so much bigger than the other one?
Well, that's a good point, because so some of the masks would have been worn directly over your face, whereas this one was, as you can see, quite enlarged, and there's a particular little feature that tells you that.
Are those for the human eyes?
Yeah, so the human eyes are just below the bear's eyes, so again, allowing the wearer to be able to move around confidently. And imagine, if you will, this by firelight.
Yeah, that would have looked very powerful.
And the coloring is brilliant, and again, Simpson work, not unlike Tlingit work in terms of the very strong eyebrows, but the mouth on this piece is what makes it brilliant.
How would they have made these colors?
Again, by this time in the 1880s, they would have been trading actively with Americans, Spaniards, Russians up and down the coast. Oftentimes the red came from Chinese sources.
Okay.
So by that time they would have been using commercial paints, as opposed to in much earlier times they would have used paints where the pigment was based on either a mineral like iron oxide or a variety of plants, berries, things of that
Yeah,
nature.
the colors are very vivid.
Yes, it's a brilliant piece, and it's really a highlight here in the Crystal Gallery.
It's beautiful.
So this is the museum's masterpiece. It's by James Hart, who's a hereditary Haida chief, and it's called The Dance Screen, The Scream 2.
This piece is so cool. And this was part of the opening of the Audain, correct?
Yes, this room in terms of the architecture was built to fit this piece exactly.
Wow. And so what is this piece signifying? What's it telling us?
Well, it's actually quite a simple story in the fact that we have salmon who are all around the periphery of the work, and then you can see that we have a number of human and animal forms taking these cautionary poses. And the caution that they're offering is around the loss of salmon habitats. So that's really the baseline of this message. And then in addition to that, we have the whole world here in the fact that above we have the eagle, so that's representing the sky. In the middle, can you recognize this crest?
That's a bear.
That's a bear representing the land. And then we have two orcas.
This one has a spear tongue.
That's correct. And the spear tongue differentiates this as a female orca versus the serrated teeth of the male orca.
And is that a beaver over there?
That's a beaver, again, doing this cautionary shout. On the other side, we have a raven. Also, these two human forms are actually bear cubs that have taken human form. And again, they all strike a very cautionary pose.
And is that a bear paw on the top of their head?
That's right. So the bear mother is resting her two paws on top of her cubs' heads.
Oh yeah, of course, of course. What's it made of?
This is made out of red cedar, but very special red cedar. The trees were old growth trees on Haida Gwaii that actually burned about 125 years ago, but remained standing.
Oh, wow.
And so then James Hart had a local lumberjack cut them down and mill them. And that's actually important in the fact that because they dried naturally and through the process of fire, that meant there was much less shifting in the wood. So it made it easier to carve because there's multiple panels here that are quite seamless.
It's amazing.
It is quite impressive. And there's a special little feature right behind this central shaman figure.
Okay. What does it do?
That's the doorway to the natural world.
So you can actually walk through this piece.
You can pass through the doorway.
Will the door ever open again?
It did open, and I'll tell you about that in just a moment.
Okay.
But in order to do so, we have to remove the
Fancy
shaman
gloves.
from his perch.
So the shaman comes off of there.
That's correct.
Curtis, what's in the shaman's hand?
The shaman's holding a rattle, and that's part of the incantation he's doing on behalf of the fish. And the shaman actually can be removed from his perch so that we can see the full doorway. So this is the doorway. Would you like to go behind and see it?
I would love to go behind it.
Let's do that.
Okay. Wow.
So, as you can see, we're behind the screen,
Wow.
and that allows us to see the actual doorway with these brass hinges and a handle to open it up.
That is really neat. And so these holes, are these all out to the cautionary screams?
In fact, you're right. So these two are the nostrils of the bear that we saw earlier. And can you guess what that is?
Fluff.
It's fluff, also known as eagle down.
Okay, eagle
And
down.
when we had this danced in this past fall, at the end of the ceremony, all these holes were loaded with eagle down, and then the dancers went,
Wow, that would have been so cool.
it was fantastic.
Yeah,
Because eagle down filled the room.
that is so neat.
And so that, in many ways, is the completion of this piece. So from the carving to the ceremony, made the piece whole here at the Audain
It's
Art
lived
Museum.
its life, and now it's here to represent everything that it wants to caution us on.
That's exactly
That's
right.
really cool. Neat. You never would know unless you can come back here, and I don't think everybody gets to come back here.
We're behind the screen.
You're behind the screen. This is so cool.
Now we're in the Whistler Blackcomb Foundation Gallery, and it features our collection of Emily Carr works. And this is actually a very pivotal work in the career of Emily Carr. It was created in 1911. It's called Le Paysage.
It's very colorful.
It's very colorful, and that's a great observation, because this was created at a time when Emily Carr voyaged to France, in the north of France, to get a better understanding of the European avant-garde in painting. So the color is actually a very good observation in the fact that when she went there, she made much higher keyed colors, so these purples and pinks, as well as this is clearly a European pastoral scene.
It is. And I mean, it's amazing. There's pink in it, and I would never have thought to put pink in a green, grassy field.
Exactly right. And as I said, it's a pivotal moment in Carr's career, because we'll see when she returns to Canada and to British Columbia and starts to travel up and down the coast and making new renderings, we'll see how this moment in France has a dramatic effect on her work.
That would have been a huge voyage at the time.
It took her just 2 weeks to get from Victoria to Montreal, to then board a ship to cross the Atlantic.
Yeah.
It was a massive undertaking, and in that way, Emily Carr was so committed to her practice and so committed to understanding what was the leading edge of easel painting at that time.
Well, it must have been worth it, because she is an amazing artist.
By far one of Canada's most famous artists.
Let's go see her next piece.
Sure. Now we're looking at one of our signature Emily Carr pieces called War Canoes, that was painted in 1912, just after she returned from France. So anything particular that you notice about this work?
The colors are amazing.
That's right. And so these really high-keyed purples and greens and blues are something that she picked up from European artists, particularly out of Paris, the movement called the Fauve, the wild beasts as they were known. And in fact, this is a piece that Emily Carr reworked upon her return. So in other words, we have a version that was much earlier in watercolor, so 1910.
Okay.
And then she comes back and reworks it with this new high-keyed palette.
And how different are they?
They're incredibly different, and that's a very interesting point because we're having a wonderful Emily Carr exhibition this fall that will feature the year before she went to France, the year she was in France, and then the year upon her return, where she created works such as War Canoes.
That will be really, really cool to see.
It'll be nice because our visitors will be able to see that massive transformation in Emily Carr's work.
To really see how the Fauve has impacted her work, because Emily Carr's art is so vivid to all of us in Canada. We just recognize it so much.
And she was the most radical Canadian artist of her time.
Super cool. That's in September?
Yes, so the Emily Carr Fresh Seeing, French Modernism and the West Coast opens on Saturday, September 21st to the public, and it's the biggest Audain Art Museum exhibition to date.
I will be here for sure.
So will I. See you
That'll
then.
be very cool. Thanks so much for having me again, Curtis.
You're most welcome. Thank you for joining us on Behind the Screen.